Content Automation 3.0 is here and I'm excited to share all about it. Now, this video is for you if you're interested in creating AI automated content. We've been building workflows since the start of the year and have made many iterations over the last almost 12 months now in order to build some customized AI automation workflows using existing SaaS tools like Airtable, Make.com, and these other tools that allow us to build our business operations in a much more streamlined way. In this video, I'm going to teach you all about it, how we build it, why we build it this way. I'm going to show you some really advanced AI automation techniques. And you're welcome to buy the template if you wish, but I would encourage you just to stick around to really understand how AI automation is working when it comes to content creation, but also when it comes to just building businesses in general, because I truly believe that in the next 12 months, we should be able to be 10 times more productive than what businesses were operating at, say, a year ago. Yet most people have no idea how much AI automations can actually help their businesses because everybody's so caught up in just catching up with the day-to-day work that they don't really understand what is possible. So in this video, I'm going to show you what is possible. I'm going to show you Content Automation OS 3.0, and I'm going to show you how you can actually start implementing these particular workflows into your business as well, whether you do it through the templates that we provide, or if you hire somebody, or if you just learn it yourself. I definitely encourage you to stick around and watch as much of this as possible. And I'm going to give you a few key points to at least watch if you don't watch the whole thing in just a second. But really, you start to learn about how some of these workflows can operate, because I can guarantee you that you're going to be impressed with what you're about to see. Now, before we dive in, I want to show you a few testimonials from the people in my community who are using this as beta testers, like Wade, talking about how we're definitely using some innovative things here that nobody else is talking about and doing. Nat says, wow, very nice. Philo says, you're definitely raising the bar with Airtable interfaces. Joseph says, I must say your project is truly outstanding. I'm at a loss for words. Hatem giving us some praise for a great update. And as Audra says, in the very last section there, this is sexy as hell. And I don't know about that, but I'm going to let you decide once you've watched the entire video. But for now, I want to give you some pointers on what I would definitely recommend watching if you don't watch the entire thing. But as you can see right now on the screen, we do have all of the timestamps for how this video is laid out. And I'm laying out these timestamps because it will be a long video. I wanted to make this video as valuable as possible. And I want you to bookmark it and come back and watch and rewatch over and over again, because there's some really valuable tips that I'm going to share alongside of showing you how Content Automation OS actually works inside of Airtable, so that you can also be learning how you can potentially implement these in your business as well, customized exactly how you want them. So on the timestamps that you see right now, there are a couple that I would definitely recommend you watch. The first one is around the big AI automation mistake. So specifically around thinking from a systems design perspective and how we integrate our AI models, and also how we are building our own personalized apps for our entire business. This will help you understand the big picture of AI automation. And the Make.com section as well will also be super valuable. So you can see how we're building more advanced workflows inside of Make.com, where if you have a blueprint, for example, so if you're familiar with Make, you'll understand that you can export the JSON blueprints and then import them into other accounts. So this is important if you're an AI automation agency owner, or you plan to be, or if you want to work with clients, or if you want to sell templates in the future to other brands as well, then this is super important to know, because we're actually building our Make.com automations in a very different way to where we were 12 months ago, so that we don't have to remap every single module all the time. So for example, a spoiler alert, we used to have 24 Make.com scenarios in our previous version. We now have just 5 scenarios. And those 24 scenarios used to take 3 to 4 hours to set up, whereas these new ones take less than 10 minutes to set up in total. So about 1 or 2 minutes per scenario, which is pretty crazy, right? And there is one specific building technique that you need to follow in order to make that happen. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So I'm going to go through all of that as well. Now, before I do get into the content, I also want to point out something very important, which is this template is available for purchase. More than 600 people have purchased over the last few months. And that really just came from a couple of YouTube videos that I've been sharing about over those last few months as well. And it actually was the start of building Big Moves, the AI automation marketplace. I had a pet care company at the start of this year. And as I was building this automation template, I had more and more people asking me to sell it to them as well. I realize that there's a big opportunity happening here now when it comes to AI automation. And I'm going to talk about the 3 big bets that we're making in just a second when it does come to AI automation and the Big Moves marketplace. But before I dive into that, this Content Automation OS system is available online to be purchased. So you really have 2 options. You can watch this video in its entirety. You can spend 50, 60, maybe 70 hours to rebuild everything yourself inside of Airtable, or you can spend a few dollars on our marketplace, import the templates. You'll import the Airtable template. We're also building them for tools like Smart Suite and Knack and maybe a few other tools as well, which are coming. So make sure you check that out. And then you import your make.com blueprints or N8N templates, and you can literally have this template up and running within 15 minutes or less, which is pretty cool, right? It's basically the same amount of onboarding that you have for a normal software tool, except now you have complete control over every single part of that workflow, so you can customize it exactly how you want it. And that's one of the big bets that we're making, is that we're moving from generic SaaS tools to custom AI automation workflows and apps tailored to your business. So I'm going to talk a bit more about that in just a moment as well. But the big bet number 2 that we're making here at Big Moves AI Automation Marketplace is that our teams will have 10x productivity through AI automations. And it's more about empowering our teams with customized workflows, not more tools and apps. And then big bet number 3 is that content creator-led brands will disrupt industries and create the next billion-dollar businesses. And I think this is going to be true in every single industry, from all of your online and digital platforms and software tools. I think one huge one that has a huge amount of opportunity is if you disrupt Airtable and not very friendly to content creators. So if you can build a competitor to them, I'll absolutely back you. But it's not just that tool. There's so many different tools out there that are not content creator led. They're not content creator friendly, but the puck is moving towards content creators. People want to be involved. They want to see someone face to face. They want to be involved in community. This is the reason why I'm here. I'm not typically a content creator. It takes a lot of effort and energy for me to get on video and talk about this, but I know that's where the puck is heading, and I love business, and I know I'm going to be here for decades. So I'm going to go and follow this trend. I don't want to get left behind by not doing that. So these are the 3 big bets that we're making when it comes to AI automation and Big Moves, the marketplace. And this is the first template that we're really pushing out there into the world to over impress people. And if I'm being real right now, we want this template to capture your attention in such a way that you are totally blown away by what AI automations can do when built by someone who isn't a developer, has no idea how to code, and that you can literally do them in tools that cost $20 a month or less, and build out these systems that are almost on par to what you would expect to find in a big tech company, but not as flashy. And that's fine. We don't need them to be flashy, but they operate in a way that makes business so much more productive. And that's really my passion, is like, how can our teams and how can us personally be 10 times more productive than what we are right now? The hardest part of building and scaling a business is scaling the team and the dynamics that come around with those team members, from managing them to making sure they've got training, to making sure they show up on time, do the right thing, hitting their KPIs. If you've hired enough people, you'll also understand that you become a bit of a babysitter and a therapist and all of this type of stuff as the dynamics of a team start to play out. So while this is great to have a team involved, I think we can actually be way more productive with smaller teams, solving bigger problems, which is ultimately going to push the entire world forward. So that's what I'm truly passionate about, and this one leaning into AI automation so much. So Content Automation OS is completely available online, and we do have a special here for you on YouTube. It is Content 30. Use that coupon code at checkout and you'll get 30% off. We don't do 30% off on any other products. Like I said, this is our product that we want to get you in. We want to surprise and delight you. We want to impress you. We want you to fall in love with AI automations so that you can not only start building a smarter business for yourself, but hopefully you'll come back to the Big Moves marketplace and continue to use us for the next 5, 10, 15 years as we build up and have basically any workflow that you can want and need for your business is going to be on the marketplace. Now, we're brand new, which means there's not that many on there yet, but that's the vision for the company, and I'd love to get you involved. Now, this next section is going to be a little bit more education around AI automation in general and the theory of how we actually build AI automations in a much more strategic way. If you're not interested in this, you want to see how content automation works, there are timestamps. You can see the chapters. Go skip through to the chapter where I'll do a full demo of Content Automation OS, and you'll be able to just dive straight into the content there. But if you want to understand the educational component and sort of the pillar, the foundational understandings of what you need to know for AI automations, then buckle up. Let's dive into this here now as well. So the first one that I want to talk about is the one big mistake that people make when getting started with AI automations. And I made this mistake as well, which is focusing on automating tiny parts of the workflow without understanding the entire context of what you're trying to do. And this comes back to systems design thinking. We want to understand that if we automate something now, what are all the downstream effects that happen if we were to automate this section? And most importantly is, what are we missing in the entire picture? And what I mean by that is a lot of people out here who are doing TikTok videos and different school communities are just giving away all of these small blueprints that automate a few things in a few steps that look impressive because they're new, but they're not really achieving much from a business strategy point of view. They're just sexy, they look great, they automate some stuff. But the only thing it's really doing is it's going to cause so many more headaches downstream that it's totally not worth it. So if you were to someone who were to just download these random blueprints that people are sharing and implement them, you might be impressed initially, but then a week later or 2 weeks later, you stop using it because the novelty has worn off and it's not really making much effect to your business. That's why we need to focus on systems and templates, not just automations. That's the big paradigm shift that we need to make here early when we are starting to think about AI automations. And you think about it from a developer's point of view, right? Like, they're not going to just write some code to automate tiny processes. Typically, there might be instances where you do that. They're thinking about how can we build a solid system that takes us from the start of one particular process right through to the end, and it allows us to move through all of the different steps during that particular process that we would typically have to do manually. So we want to really be careful when we're mapping out our AI automations and our full content systems or business systems, that we are not leaving out any parts of the process, and we're not going to create more headaches for us downstream. The last thing you want to be doing is fixing your automations every couple of days or every day because they're not integrated into the right places at the right time. So don't even start with AI automation until you have a proper system, until you've mapped out your own system as well for your particular business. So a perfect example of this, which I'm going to show you right now, is this is a spoiler alert into the Content Automation OS system, is we have a brand assets section of the Content Automation OS, which is the first place to start. So one thing that happens that you learn when you're prompting AI is that it will give you very random outputs unless you add some extra parameters when you are prompting it. So things like brand voice guideline, excluded words, custom avatar, writing grade level, all of these things make a huge difference to the output so that it doesn't look like general AI content when it comes out the other end, that it actually looks and feels like your brand. So if you were to automate something and didn't think about this at the beginning, then you're going to have to redo all of your AI prompts again anyway, or you're going to have to manually add all of this stuff into every single prompt that you do, which just takes way too long. But what we can do when building our systems is have something like a brands tab that is now, once we've filled this out once, so once we add the writing grade level in here once, the brand voice guidelines in here once, we can now, inside of our Airtable base, interlink this particular record in every single workflow that will allow this information to be pushed into the AI automations and the prompts every single time. So going back to what I think about when I'm building these types of templates is I was like, okay, what is step number one if I was to work with a client? The first thing I need to understand is, what is their brand about? Because if you're not understanding what their brand is about, then how do you know what to create, right? So we need to mimic that exact same process with any type of automation that we're doing when it comes to AI automations. So that's one example. So the next thing to think about in this example here is we have an AI models tab inside of our brand settings as well. So I'm going to come back to this in a second. But first I'm going to point out what most people are doing instead that is making life so much more difficult in the long run. So we did this in the beginning as well, which is when we were building our AI automations, we would have multiple routes depending on the different types of AI models that are out there. So we had one for OpenAI, one for Anthropic, one for Perplexity. And then inside of that, we would have to either set the model. So you can see we've set the model in here of GPT-4o, because that's the easy way to build this. That's the default way. So it will work fine. It will look sexy to someone who's getting into AI automation for the very first time. But what you'll quickly find out is that in 6 months' time, when they release a new model, you now have to go into every single AI automation that you have built inside of make.com or your automation platform and manually update that model every single time. So that's like the first big problem. But the second big problem is there's more models out there than Perplexity and Anthropic, and there's going to continue to be more and more at different price points for different specialties. So you don't want to just have access to these, you want access to all of them. So when we come to integrating our AI models into these systems, we're actually using tools like OpenRouter. So OpenRouter is a platform that unifies all of the different large language models that we can actually use in our system. And instead of having to build individual workflows or individual integrations into every AI model, we just build one into OpenRouter. We fund our OpenRouter account with the amount of credits that we need. And now we just need to add in certain parameters from the documentation of OpenRouter to feed in the information we need to prompt the right AI models at the right time. So why is this important? This is important because these different AI models have different use cases. So for example, we're writing a lot of copy right now with Claude 3.5 Sonnet. We're using GPT-4o and GPT-01 for a lot of reasoning type of stuff. So like project planning, building out different projects with AI. And then we're using Llama for a cheaper option for some more simple tasks as well. So we can now use all of these models within the one workflow without having to rebuild everything all the time. Exactly the same for AI images as well. So like AI images and those models are changing all of the time. So we've got some models here for ideogram. We have a model here for DALL-E. We have some for Flux, Wire Replicate. And we're implementing this in the brand settings tab. And then anytime that we are using AI in any of our workflows, then we're just interlinking these records into those workflows so that if we ever need to add a new model, we only need to add it in one place. So we just come into here, we add our model in this particular form here, integrate it into the system, and then it's fully done. We don't have to go into a dozen different workflows and change a dozen different make.com automations. It's just one change, and then we can select it at the right time in the right workflow when it comes to creating content or any of these other business processes that we're operating from. The same theory is true when it comes to things like your prompts. So you have a couple of options when it comes to prompts. You could build your prompts into the make.com automation, but then you don't have a lot of control over what is happening with the prompt. If you need to go in and edit it, you have to go into make.com. You have to find the scenario. You have to jump in there and figure it all out. Whereas what we're actually doing is we're building one prompt library in our template, in our business template, and then we're just filtering them by different product types and different prompt types so that we can have some consistency in the prompts that we're using, which allows us to iterate. If we're not getting the AI output that we want, then we can iterate on the prompt a little bit. But the second thing that allows us to do is when we do get a really good prompt, we have an extra section here called good output example. Not very creative of the name, but the premise is very creative, meaning when we get a good output for this particular prompt, then we add it into this section here. So it shows the good output. And then when this prompt feeds into the AI, it will say, here's the template that I want you to follow, reference the transcript or reference the context of what I want you to write, follow this template. And then here's a good example of an output that this template provided before. And I want you to get that as close as possible to that template. That's basically what we're saying. I'm saying it in human language. We made that sound a little bit better on there, but that's basically what we're saying. So we now have this full feedback loop of template, a good example, and then context of what we're trying to do. And it feeds all of that through in order to create much better outputs from our AI automations and from our AI prompts in general. So you could do this by prompting ChatGPT dashboard. It's going to take you way longer. Whereas now we have it fully automated into a system that allows us to work 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 times faster than any type of workflow or any type of software tool that is out there. But that is just for the content system, right? Let me just give you a quick sneak peek into our entire business operating system, because we're actually doing this for other things as well, like launching digital products. So all of the products that we have on the marketplace, we have full workflows for that as well. One I referenced a little bit earlier was planning projects. So we have a place here to store all of the different ideas that we have that are built into the system in a much more structured way that actually scores how impactful that particular idea could be. And then we have workflows to plan that project as well. That references what our business does. It references who our team members are. It references all the tools that we have in order to make the business work. And it will start to plan out all of the different projects that we need as well. We have the place built in for our SOPs so that we can integrate those into the project plans as well. So this is what I mean by having a fully customized version of software tools, but built exactly for how our business operates. Like I said, this is the future. I don't know how to code. I have no idea how to code. I'm learning bits and pieces by learning a bit of no-code AI automations and stuff like that. But we're building these workflows with very little to no experience in development, but with a lot of business experience. And that's most people out there. If you're a business owner, you know how your business can operate faster, but you just don't know how to make it work faster. What used to happen is we would have to hire expensive developers and expensive offshore teams or hire a CTO. The days of those are over. We just need a few key tools that allow us to customize databases and automations and run some different workflows. And you can do just as much, if not more, when you're actually building them yourselves. But it does take a little bit of dedication to learning this particular art. And if you have templates to work from, like those on Big Moves, then you can move so much faster as well. And that's exactly why we started this marketplace. Now, one more quick little section before we do dive into the content automation OS example, which is the Automation Continuum. And I have this model here of what I'm thinking about when it comes to automation, because there are a lot of different opinions out there, and a lot of the creators that you see online will lean more towards the fully autonomous workflows that look super impressive, that generate tons and tons of content all at once. Whereas I seem to be a little bit more conservative, because to me, quality is much more important than automation. Whereas I think the people who are typically those that get into automation, they are very much automation focused, and everything should be automated. I'm not really an automation guy. I'm not really a tech guy. I'm a marketer. I'm somebody who understands the importance of brand and quality and having different types of angles in order to stand out. This is my specialty, but I also have realized the importance of automation, which is why we're fully leaning into this. But the more conservative approach means that I am able to have more checks and balances throughout the entire process so that we can make sure it's always on brand. Whereas if you lean more to the right of this model, where it's like fully autonomous workflows, for example, you have a long form video, and then all you do from a manual point of view is you add that video into your automation, and then the automation goes off in 10 different directions and creates your YouTube video description, turns it into a podcast, it turns it into a dozen different videos, like short form videos. It creates another smaller video, then creates hundreds of pieces of content. It then posts that content on social media. That's like fully autonomous, right? You're letting AI take care of everything, and you're not really having too many self-checks along the way to make sure it's on brand. Some people like that. Typically, it's just beginners that like that, or people trying to sell you a system because it looks cool. Whereas I think the more experienced business owners, and it's especially true for the ones that I've talked to in my community, those that have made many millions of dollars, always are much more conservative with how much they are automating and making sure that they're checking in all of the time. They understand brand quality over time is the most important thing, not just moving fast and creating so much content. Remember, it's not about how much content you create or how much you automate. It's about the quality that also goes into that. So a lot of people will lean more to the right. I would say I sit very much in the middle. So somewhere around guided autonomy, where we are automating as much as possible, but we're checking in all the time. Plus we're prompting a few extra times in order to make sure that we're getting things on brand as much as possible. Then, of course, there are others that are doing manual control, and I would actually consider ChatGPT largely down towards the left-hand side of this continuum. So almost down to manual control, where you have to manually add in a prompt every single time. And if you have a business model that is working, where most business models when they're working is just repetitive tasks, then you're actually spending so much unneeded time prompting and over and over again to get the same result. Sure, the topic might be different of your blog post or your newsletter or whatever, but it's ultimately the same thing. We want to move that up the scale a little bit. We want to automate those pieces where we can definitely eliminate that part of the process, but we also want to find that balance of having the right amount of checks to make sure that we're fully on brand as well. So it's important to understand that, because then that'll make the whole example make so much more sense. Let's dive in now. Now, for the moment, you've been waiting for a demo here of Content Automation OS. Now, when people log into Airtable, this is typically what you'll see: a whole bunch of different tables here that kind of just look like a spreadsheet on steroids. It allows you to do a few extra things. Is it really that impressive? That's what I thought when I got started as well. And we built some pretty impressive dashboards or workflows inside of these particular tables without even looking at what other capabilities Airtable actually had. But then I came across interfaces, and this is where Content Automation 3.0 is very impressive. This is what impressed everybody in the community, and I hope it will impress you as well. So we've already talked about the brand assets, which I'm not going to talk about in this section. If you want to learn more about that, just go back a little bit and review that again. But the really impressive part comes from these particular workflows inside of the interfaces here. Now, the first part is having different dashboards for our different workflows and also for all of our content. So our first one here has all of the content in flight for the different type of scenarios that we have. So we have a YouTube video workflow, we have a newsletter writing workflow, we have a blog post workflow, we have a podcast workflow. We just have a general content workflow that you can use for any type of content as well if you do wish, but it shows everything here in this particular dashboard. But let's dive into now, and I'm going to give you a full demo of a YouTube video flow, and then we'll look at the newsletter flow, and the other two will work exactly the same as well, but just with some of the customizations that are needed for the other workflows. But these two will actually give you a really good understanding of how we are using these systems to work so much faster. So let's dive into the YouTube video workflow first. So first, you can see here we have full instructions of how to use the YouTube video workflow. Now, if you log in for your particular business, then this content won't be existing. So in order to add new content, all we need to do is open up this form here, and we want to select the brand asset. So the brand that we've created in step number 1. And then that is now going to reference all of the brand voice guidelines. It's going to reference the writing grade level. It's going to reference who our avatar is. It's going to feed this into every single prompt that we send into the AI for our YouTube video workflow. Next, we will then want to give the record a content title, so an ID of what we're actually working on. If you have a YouTube title, you can add this in now. However, it's not essential because we're actually going to be using AI to prompt and create some titles as well. And then you probably want to give it a publish date of when it's going to be published, and then we can put it into the planning stage. Now, what will happen in this section here is we will add our full transcript for our full video here, which will then allow us to run all of our AI automations moving forward. So you do need to upload this particular one to YouTube first, or download your transcript from your video editing service, or maybe another tool that you have, and add it into here. There are extra customizations we can do, and we do talk about that a little bit more inside of the Massive Moves membership. So this is an AI automation community and membership. An entire year inside of this community costs basically 1 or 2 months of most of these other school communities out there. But I also give you the entire amount of money back in credits for the marketplace over the 12 months. So it's a no-brainer offer. If you just want the education, you don't want the content automation system, but you want to get involved in a great community plus get some education, then this is definitely the best place to be on the internet. But if we come back in, let's say now we're working on this particular example here, which is still this AI-powered project planning automation template, and then we have our full transcript here. So if we scroll down to now step number 2, it'll tell us what we can actually do in this particular section here. So it says select your prompts, and these prompts will be used to create all of the different things that we need for our YouTube videos. So let's open this up. So this is pulling from our prompt library, which we talked about earlier, but it's filtered to only show the prompts that have been selected for YouTube. So let's say we want to find titles. So this prompt here, it says, your task is to write 10 variations of titles for this YouTube video. We would also want to add in a description. We would also want to add in some chapters, and we could also add in some, let's not even worry about the thumbnail titles, but we want to add in a first comment as well. So we choose all of those prompts, and what this does now is that it will pull from the prompt library, and when I trigger this workflow, the AI automation will work through through each of these prompts from the prompt library individually, one at a time, and iterate through them is the technical term. So once it's iterated through, it will send it to our next dashboard here, which I'm going to get to in a second, so that we can begin to use those outputs for planning the publishing and the scheduling of this particular video. So I'll get there in a moment. But next, like I talked about earlier in this video as well, is we now have the option to choose what AI model we want to use at this point. So if I click on this plus button here, it has all of the different AI models that we can use in order to prompt the system with these particular prompts. So because this is predominantly copywriting, then I'm actually going to use Anthropic Claude 3.5 Sonnet. I'm finding that outperforms ChatGPT when it comes to copywriting, creativity, and using proper copywriting frameworks. So we're going to run with that particular one. Now, another cool addition and extra feature that we added into this version that didn't appear in any of the other versions was we can also ask it for how many outputs we want it to create. So you could prompt this for one particular output, and that's what it will default to. But I like to have a couple to choose from so that I can mix and match the different outputs to get them exactly how I want it. So the way that I use AI predominantly is, first and foremost, I'm using it as a way to provide me with as many different variations of possibilities as possible so that I can mix and match and choose and allow me to build out those ideas in my head based on the context that I also have for the business as well. So let's just say we want 2 output variations for each of those, and we'll just trigger the AI prompts. So we can see now this status has updated to say that it is writing in the background. And what will happen now is in our AI output list down below on this workflow is that all of the outputs will begin to drop into this grid so that we can then use them in step number 4 to plan out our particular YouTube video here in this section. So you can see this is already pre-filled, but it has all of the things we need to upload into YouTube before we're going to publish it and schedule it to go online. So this is the power of having these fully integrated systems, is that we just need to move them down the workflow as they appear. So let's have a look at these outputs now. So the first one, if we expand on it, we've got variation 1 here, which is our attention grabbing titles. And then we have variation 2 here, which is more of our SEO focused titles. So let's just say that we're happy with this one here, which is how to build AI project systems. And then we would if we're happy with that, we just come down and we will paste it into this particular section here of how to build AI project systems. So once we've done that, we can then click output done and it will remove it from this particular list. Next, we have our descriptions. So it's written here a couple of variations of descriptions that we might want to use inside of our YouTube description. So for example, let's say that's the one that we want to go with, which is variation 1. So we can copy that. We can come down to this particular description section here and paste that in, and we are good to go. So I'm not going to paste that in right now, so I haven't checked it, but as you can see, it's very easy to move these things into these sections here. Once it's done, then we can just click to published or done, and it will remove it from the actual output list here. Then we have an option here to create our chapters. So because we added in a transcript that had all of the timing on it, so a timed transcript, then it should be able to accurately complete all of the chapters for that particular video. So as you can see right here, we've got our variations of our chapters. We can copy that and we can come down and paste these in here as well. So you can see a lot of this was exactly the same as what just came out before. So it's quite consistent in how it's actually writing those chapters as well. So once that is done, then we would hit output done. And then we have our first comment. So we've got our first comment here of what is your biggest frustration, ready to streamline your content creation stuff. So like, again, it's creating everything that we need in order to upload the video and schedule the video so that it's fully ready for YouTube and the algorithm that goes along with it as well. Once that is done, we can then click output done and we're ready to go. So you would then just come in and fill out other things. So if you have playlists, you can add all your playlists into this section here. We've already added at the start, but our publish date, if you ever need to change it, that can change. And we can do things like track if we've added the end screen once we've uploaded the video and added any mentioned resources into the description or into the comments or the little cards on YouTube as well. So we can track that as well. So now we have everything here that we need in order to publish the YouTube video, which is cool, right? But the great thing about this particular workflow is, let's say that we're not happy with something here in this particular section. All we need to do is come back up to number 2, and we can run any of these prompts again, or we can go into our prompt library, change the prompts and adapt them and run them again to see if we can get anything better. So you just need to go back and forth between 2, 3, and 4 and make sure that you're getting it exactly how you want as many times as possible. Then let's say you need to hand it off to a team member. It's a little bit hard for them to go through that drop-down menu, try and find the right one, find all the information, scroll all the way down. So we actually have this YouTube dashboard as well. So this is just an easy way to show all of that information we've now just created in a very simple dashboard that they can search and find that particular video much easier. So you can see all of that information is there, and we also have the option to create AI images down below if you wish. But let's come back to the YouTube video workflow now, because it doesn't end there. And this next step is what makes Content Automation OS so different to anything else that is out there, so different to ChatGPT, so different to any software tool that is available, is we can now take that transcript from YouTube and turn it into so much more. So I came up with this system at the start of the year where we can actually turn our transcript into hundreds of social media and email posts. So what that means is we can actually pull in templates from the library that are preset, that show different viral posts based on other content creators, and it will reference the transcript of the YouTube video. It will say, use this transcript to complete these templates for this particular brand and avatar. So for example, in this one, it's going to follow this particular template here. So it's going to reference the YouTube video. It's going to then write this sentence. Then it's going to write this section here. Then it's going to write this section here. So it's literally just completing a template in order to create content and social media posts on Autopilot. So if we come back into our workflow again, in theory, in this section here, where we are going to transform our transcript into hundreds of social media posts, we could line up basically as many posts here as we wanted. And as long as your automation credits have enough operations in order to run the workflow, and as long as there's no errors along the way, it will theoretically run hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of these templates. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. You can probably get some really great stuff with maybe a dozen or 2 dozen of these templates. But let me just add in 3 different ones here, 3 different types as well. I'll go through a few different variations here. So we're adding in 2 templates and 1 with just a hook. So these are templates on lessons on thing I did today. Most people either do wrong thing or right thing, and then hook. This one is just a hook and some pro tips. So again, we're just saying, reference the transcript, add these prompts in, run these prompts through, use Claude. We're going to provide 2 output variations for each, and we're going to run this particular automation now. So you can see this is writing, and this one actually gets sent into a different dashboard. So if we go to our social post dashboard now, and if we watch, we'll see some of these AI automations drop into this particular dashboard here. So as you can see, these top 3 here, the ones that are just dropped in. So let's have a quick look at them. So this one is on lessons on thing I did today. So variation 1, build an AI project planning system. After years of struggling with rigid project tools, I created a custom solution that actually works for entrepreneurs. Here are 5 lessons I learned in 3 months. Structure beats chaos. Having a clear framework for capturing ideas and planning projects reduces mental clutter. AI works best with context. Simple foundations scale better. 2-step AI planning gets better results. SOPs need a home. So a lot of this I've actually talked about in this video as well. When I have a message that resonates, I say it over and over again. As you can say, this like the proof is in the pudding of like how good this content is in comparison to if you just said, hey, AI, create me a social media post for planning project. And it's actually going to reference all of the data that it has, and it's going to create you a generalized output that could be relevant for any brand. This is exactly the words that are coming out of my mouth, but in social media post form. Like, this is why this is so impressive. So I think I'm just going to use this prompt for myself anyway. So I'm just going to remove all of that. I should look at this as well. I could probably create 2 really good posts here, but all we need to do now is just come in and edit that out a little bit and start to plan our social media posts. So right now it's in progress. So I'm going to put the in progress section done here. Next, let's say we're going to create a Facebook image, so I can show you how we create images as well. Then we're going to put in a publish date. Let's say it's going to get posted on that date at around 9 o'clock. So now we have this really great post. But what we can also do from inside this dashboard is use our AI models for image generation and create an image that will complement this particular post. So here we're actually talking about project planning. So if I just write in a small digital team of people planning project, make it relatable to small business owners. So that's not really an impressive AI prompt, right? But what we can do, and we have an automation built now inside of Make that will first enhance that prompt if we choose it to. So it'll take this context and then it will run through a little bit of training data that we trained it with, and then it will create a better AI image enhanced prompt. So I'm going to run this through. Let's just choose a different model for this particular option. Let's choose GPT-4o Mini. And then we want to create an image. So we have a few variations of images that we can create from. At the moment, I really like Flux Pro. It creates really great images. So we're going to use that, which means we have a few parameters here for our other AI models, but we're not using those. So we're not using DALL-E, we're not using Ideogram, but we are using Flux. So we want to choose the aspect ratio that is best for this. I'm happy with 1:1, and then we're going to go create an image. So you can see that it's writing now, and you can see that it's just updated the image prompt so that it has more specific details for the AI model to use to create that image. And what's going to happen here in a moment is going to drop this image into the content image section. So this is the image here. So as you can see, not too bad, right? It's got both the visual effect, the focused effect of the people at the front, and then the blurred effect at the back, which is pretty impressive for an AI image. So that's something that I would probably be happy posting online. It does resonate with the avatar, the people who I'm trying to appeal for. So once we have the image created, once we have the social channel chosen, once we have the final content exactly how we want it, then all we need to do now is go approved. And what that will do will push it into the post scheduled and published tab. So it's saying here that it's approved. And when this time comes around, the publish time that we selected, we have an AI automation that's watching this view and saying, when this post publish date is now or in the past, then publish this post to Facebook, for example. And then what it will do is it will publish it. It will feed the ID of that post back into the system so that we can reference it in future. And then it will change this status from approved to published and remove it out of this view so that it won't publish again in future. So it's, again, a fully integrated system that will plan, create, schedule, and then publish your content online. But that's not all. What we can also do now, if we come back to our social post list, and let me talk about this a little bit more in detail, is it's also scalable for any type of business you're running. So if you have a couple of brands that you're operating for, you just need the one template. If you're an agency and you're working with dozens, hundreds of brands, you just need the one template. This is why we have the brand settings, because it will map all of the content to the right brand at the right time, as long as you are selecting the right brand when you're adding new content. So we can see here, I have a few examples of brands in here where if we click across, then that's all of the content in progress for Big Moves. This is all the content in progress for Tesla, nothing right now. That's the one in progress for Lamborghini. So we have these different views that we can see from this section here. So this is so much easier for you as a business owner or you as a creator to see where things are at, especially if you have a team and they need to operate as well. But we can also do cool things up here if we go from a list view to a gallery view. So we can now see via gallery of, okay, which ones are in progress, which images do I like, do I think that all of these images that I'm creating is on brand for what we're creating and what we're actually using this for. And you can see that in a gallery view as well. Or if you like the simple Kanban view, and sometimes this is so much easier for business owners to use the Kanban view, you can see where each of your pieces of content are at when it comes to the creation process and what level and what steps they are at. So you can see, do you need to focus on approving things? Do you need to focus on getting more done? Do you need to create new ideas? You can see this from the Kanban view. So again, this is the massive benefit of using these interfaces inside Airtable or tools just like it in order to build your own customized workflows that are specific to your business. So that is the YouTube video workflow, and I'm going to dive more into some of these workflows in later videos. So if you're not subscribed yet, make sure you do, and I can break down these further. But I'm just going to show you now briefly the start of the new newsletter version, and the rest of them work predominantly the same. So we have customized each of these workflows to be specific for podcasts or specific for blog posts. And the full training videos are inside of the content automation members area once you do purchase it. So if you want the template and then you want to learn how to use it, then just watch all the videos inside the membership. We have full support when it comes to that. But this particular workflow now works slightly differently because we are creating newsletters inside of this workflow as well. When it comes to creating a new newsletter, we do the same as what I did before. We have a plus button here. We can add all of this information in manually. So obviously we would do that if we were doing it for the first time. For this example, I'm just going to talk through the dashboard here. So what we actually have in this workflow is our content title. We always want to give something a title so we know how to refer back to it and find it later if we need to come back to it. We have our newsletter types. So these are some of the main types of newsletters that people would be creating here. If you have others, you can always add that into the table itself as well. There's trainings on that inside of the members area. We then also have our newsletter angle. So this is how we then help write the newsletter that we want to write. So I figured out that, okay, if I'm using a ChatGPT dashboard or Claude dashboard when I'm writing a newsletter, I give it three things. I give it a little bit of context about what it is. I give it an angle of what I want the newsletter bit to be written at, and then I give it the key points of what's inside of the newsletter so that it can follow it. So that's all we did here, is like we just followed that process. It's a little bit of context at the top here, the angle, and then the key points. Now we can select our prompts from this section here. So if we just remove this one out, and then we have now all of our newsletter prompts here that we can create. So I have one here called award-winning captivation, which is a prompt that I created that follows a certain structure. So I can just select that one and it will follow that structure when it comes to this newsletter. For this, I just want one output. I don't want to mix and match when it comes to this, and I'm going to use Claude again. So again, we're just triggering now AI automations that runs off in the background and starts to write all of this, and it will feed it into our AI output list. So as you can see now, that has dropped in. It's followed the award-winning captivation prompt that I have. And I'm not going to read through this, but let's just say I'm super happy with this. Then all I need to do is copy it, scroll down a little bit further, and we have this section here called newsletter final version. So we would just paste that content into here. And then once that is done, we can now hit output done, and we have a fully operational newsletter that is ready to go, ready to be published. But that's not where newsletters end, right? Once we have that context, there are extra steps that we need to take before we can actually publish them and schedule them in our CRM. So we want to actually be able to create subject lines. We wanted to create some preview text. We also wanted to check the newsletter, suggest any improvements. So what will happen now is the way that we've built the automations and the system behind it is it will reference all of this information, even if we run these prompts again here from step number 2. So let's just say that we get some subject lines, and we also want to get the AI to suggest some improvements. So we'll add both of those in, and we'll trigger it again. And this time it's actually going to read the newsletter that we just created and added down here in number 4. So the AI is off in the background working now, and it's beginning to drop in the outputs into our list here. So here's our 20 different headline ideas that we can use and we can read through. We might want to mix and match some of these headlines. We might want to use one for our main headline. We might want to use another one for our preview text. So you can see all of this here as well. We also ask it to add emojis so that if you are a brand, you can choose who uses emojis. You can use the emojis. If you're not, then you just ignore it. It's as simple as that. So, but once you have one that you're happy with, then you again come down, copy that, come down, paste this into your subject line section, and then another one into your preview text, and that is good to go. So you would then just choose output done. And then the next one is suggest any improvements. So it will tell you the original part of the newsletter and then how it could actually improve that sentence. So again, you could change any of those, as many of them as you like. And also keep in mind, as I keep saying, the most amount of benefit comes from when you go to the prompt library, you add your own prompts specific to your business, the ones that you use inside ChatGPT or Claude over and over again. That's how you get the biggest benefits. And you can run these through automations on Autopilot to make things so much faster. So once you have all of that information in here, you can then add your send list. So it might be all, any exclusion list, which might be none. And if you want to create an image, then the exact same process as what we did in the social media, basically the same thing operates here as well. So you just set those settings and then run it off. The AI image would come back into this space. Now, the one thing I didn't get to in the last time when we were talking about AI images is that when an AI image is created, the file size that comes back is actually pretty large. So if you were to upload those into Airtable or any other platform, it's going to take up a lot of gigabytes and a lot of your plan for each month, which means if you're creating a lot of AI content and uploading it, you could run into your limitations really quickly. So we actually are building extra parts of the process into our automations as well. So as I was thinking about this, I was like, okay, if I create an image inside of ChatGPT, for example, I would typically download that and then I'll run it through an online tool to compress that image size before I then upload it into the system. Whereas we can actually do that inside of these automations as well. So for example, in this section here, it's saying run through DALL-E, create the image, then it uploads it into a tool called Cloudinary to store it for a moment. Then it runs it through Tinify to compress that image before feeding it back into Airtable again, into this content image section. So these are the types of things that you can do inside of workflows that normally you would be doing manually. There's so much possibility to just streamline all of the little steps that might take you 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, but that all adds up over time, right? And the context switching of between the different dashboards, that takes up so much brain space that you don't even think about. That's why these automations are so powerful, because of what we can do and what we can automate, all of the little things that you don't really think about, but make a huge difference over time. So as always, once you have that newsletter written, we can then come into this section here and run all of those social media prompts again, all of the 100 or so, 150, 200 social media posts that I have, or templates that I have in this section here, to turn your newsletter into so much more content than just the newsletter itself. So this, again, this is how we can create so much really high quality content at scale for very low costs, very low and minimal effort, built on customized workflows specific to content creating with the Content Automation OS. Now, you might be thinking that there is a ton of automations that is going to take way too long to set up this entire dashboard, but it's simply not true. We're running this entire system with just 4 automations for the content creation and image generation. And then if you choose, there's 1 extra automation there to publish it directly to social media. So I did refer to this at the start of the video, but when we first got started, you can see here CRS was the very first one. We had 23 automations that needed to be set up. And when you imported each of those automations, you had to remap every single module inside of Airtable. It literally took 3 to 5 hours for people to set up, and people were stoked to use it back then with all of that extra time as well. But I'm very happy to say we've been building this with a whole lot more advanced techniques. We've come so far in the last 12 months. And these 4 or 5 automations here take about 10 to 15 minutes maximum to set up. So let me give you a demo of how we import our first one here. So the way that we can do that, and I'm giving you the secret sauce entirely here, is in our brand assets. When we begin and import and begin with this particular template, we have a few columns here for our Airtable base ID, our content creator table ID, and our AI output table ID. So we just pull those from the URL so that we can feed all of that information into each of the make.com automations and make API calls with the IDs rather than trying to remap everything with your typical modules. So what do I mean by that? Let's do a demo here for the very first one. So we just go to import blueprint. And if you do purchase Content Automation OS, you get all of these blueprints where this is literally the way that you set it up. So you import that and then it imports into your account. Now, the other cool thing that we've done is we've given you options. So we prefer to use this premium Open Router plugin right here by Synergetic. There is a special inside of the members area for purchasing this as well. You get 20% off if you do decide to use this. But we use the Open Router plugin because we just prefer it. There are also another way to use Open Router via the HTTP module. So you could also use that one as well. You could also, if you didn't want to use Open Router and just wanted to stick with OpenAI, then we have those routes there as well. Same for Anthropic. But what I recommend as soon as you import that is just unlink any of the ones that you're not going to use. So in my instance, I'm going to unlink all of those, and we're just going to use this particular one here. Then the next thing that you need to do is just set up your webhook. So we would just unlink that, and then we will go add a webhook here. We'll give the webhook a name. So I'm not going to use this one, so I'll just copy the address to clipboard. Then we come directly across into our content creator tab, and we look for the first button here for trigger AI prompts. We open up this, and then we change the webhook ID right here in this particular section. So this will actually have a placeholder for inside of your template. And then we're just adding that ID there, and then we're feeding all of the information from the brand assets into these modules. So if I come back in, let's just say that we've connected that now, we've done a test that the webhook works, then we just reconnect that. And all you need to do is come up here to where it says connection, connect in your Airtable account, click OK, and that's done. Same for the next one. Click into your connection, add your Airtable account, and that is done. Next, you would then add in your Open Router account, click OK, and that is done. And we repeat that same process for the next Open Router module, the next Airtable module, and the final Airtable module, and that is it. There's no remapping, nothing else needs to happen. It is fully integrated now, ready for you to start running automations through the template inside of Airtable. It's as simply as that. So while I was explaining it, it probably took me, 30, 45 seconds in order to connect all of that. So imagine if you weren't here explaining this on video, then it's just going to take way less. So I say it takes 10 minutes, it takes way less. The only time it may take a little bit longer is if you're integrating some of these particular modules for the first time, where you have to get your API keys from Airtable or from Open Router or from Replicate or whatever these other platforms are. That's where it would take maybe up to 10, 15 minutes. So we make that super easy. And the way that we can do that is when we normally creating an Airtable module, what most people do is they will come into Airtable, and then in this instance, we typically would go for get a record. And when we do that, then it actually pulls in the IDs based on that connection. So what happens if I export a template with the base ID from my particular brand, then when it imports, it tries to find that ID at the same time, but it can't. So you have to refresh this section here. Then you have to come down and manually find that particular base before you can start changing the settings of the actual Airtable module itself. Whereas what we do now is we feed in the base ID, table ID, and record ID, which allows us to then just operate from API calls. And then we can simply update the fields with a little bit of JSON in order to change the right fields inside of Airtable depending on what we're trying to do. So that's how we make it so much easier for not just us when we're building internally to make these workflows operate so much quicker, but also for you if you're importing templates or if you're importing them into client accounts as well. Even if you just buy the template to learn this building technique, it would be totally worth it alone, because in the long run, this could save you hundreds, maybe thousands of hours as you build over time and create these scenarios inside of client accounts and sell these templates and whatever else you're going to do as well. So I'd encourage you just to purchase the template in order to learn and understand that particular process as well. And we just repeat the same process for our other automations here. So the AI output for the image generator, the content creator for the image generator, the content creator blog post trigger. So all of these are built exactly the same. We import them, we choose the lane that we want to run through, and then we just connect those accounts. So we make it very simple, very easy. And you'll see people in the community talking about how easy it is for them as well. So I hope this part was valuable. Like I said at the start, just watching this part alone would be worth your entire time anyway. So now let's talk about the costs involved in order to get started. Now, when people first see this, their first question is always, well, this must cost me a fortune. How much are all of these tools actually going to cost me per month? So the tools that you will need are Airtable, Make.com, a developer account for your AI models, including your images, Cloudinary, Tinify, and maybe a couple of others. But here's the good news. If you were to do exactly what we are showing inside of the Airtable template with all of your different SaaS tools, so there are multiple SaaS tools out there for podcasting and for writing blog posts and for doing YouTube videos. If we were to use all of those, the best option I can find with those is around about $300 a month in order to have the right tools to get all of those workflows. Whereas you can actually use Airtable free option. We use the free option for like the first 6 months when using this content system. They have cracked down more recently on API calls, so they are very limited right now. but you will get away with the free version of Airtable for a little while. Some of the interfaces may not be operational in the free version, but you can still use it and get a long way. So you could also just sign up for a $20 a month version, give all your team the logins. That's what I do, honestly. And then you'll have a fully operational system for your business for $20 a month, which is pretty impressive. Because remember, with Airtable, we're not just creating content, we're actually building every single workflow for our business inside of that system. We're also creating this base in other tools as well in future, like SmartSuite, Knack, maybe Notion, maybe a few other tools in future as well. So if you do have suggestions, pop them down below. The whole idea of this is to build workflows inside your existing tools. We don't want to be having so many different SaaS tools. So that's number one. Around about, let's call it $20 a month. Number two is then having a make.com account that has enough operations. I would typically go with the Pro account. Has a few extra things inside of the Pro that allows the automations to run much more reliability than if you were to just go the core. So let's call it $16 a month. We're also building these templates inside of NAN. So you do have an option. NAN is a little bit more complicated, a little bit harder for those that aren't that experienced with automations to get started, but that it is also cheaper as well. And you can make it super cheap by self-hosting it, which is like another advanced way to run these automations. But for most people, spending $16 a month to get started is very achievable for pretty much any experienced business. Then you have these other tools, Cloudinary, which currently we're just running a free account, Tinify, which currently we're just running a free account. But even if you do go to more than, I think if they give you 500 images that will compress freely per day. If you're compressing more than 500 images, then I'm sure you can afford the price to actually pay for that as well. And then of course, you're just paying for your AI tools. So again, we're using Open Router, which is just pay for your usage. Plus I think they add like a 7% fee on top in order to make it easy for you to integrate all of your different LLM models. So ultimately that comes down to what you're doing for your content creation, how many brands you're working with. But as an example, to create some of those images that I was showing you, I think they were costing about 8 cents per image. To run like a YouTube workflow with say like a dozen social media posts, it's probably costing you anywhere between 5 to 10 cents per YouTube video, probably less than that for the other workflows. So you can see it's very affordable. I don't think for my business personally, and we're not creating too much content right now, but for my business, not just for content automation, but for creating digital products and project planning, we're spending maybe $30 to $50 a month maximum. Whereas most people are probably not going to spend that much if you're getting started, or if you're an existing business where you're making money, and then even if you're spending $300 to $500 a month on these AI models, it's probably saving you $5,000 to $10,000 a month anyway on extra team members. It's ridiculously cheap. Anybody who complains about the pricing is absolutely crazy in my opinion, because the way that I look at it is I compare it to the alternative of 2 or 3 years ago. The alternative was, in order to do what we're doing automated in these systems with the same amount of output, we would have to hire like an entire position, whether that's an offshore virtual assistant or even an internal team member, for anywhere between $20,000 a year to $50,000 a year. Whereas this system can probably replace that person for less than $1,000 a year, honestly. So it's pretty ridiculous where we're at right now, but I would encourage you to check it out on the website. We have more details on the website about all of that stuff. We talk about more of the workflows. And ultimately, if you just want the education, then check out the membership online as well. So that is Content Automation OS 3.0. So I'd love to hear from you down below in the comments. What was the most impressive part? And also, what would you like to learn about in more depth that I didn't go into in this video? There are so many advanced features that I didn't even get time to talk about in this video. You ultimately need to come into the membership if you want instant access to those, but I'm happy to share as much as possible. One big mission that we have here at Big Moves and building this AI automation marketplace is to make this a content-led brand that provides as much education as possible for free, because we truly believe this is where business is going. We truly believe this is how business can scale more effectively, make a bigger impact, so we can start to focus on some of the bigger problems in the world as well, which there are many, but we also want to be having fun in the process and eliminating a lot of those tasks that weren't that fun in the past. I don't know about you, but I have a love-hate relationship with content creation. I know how important it is. I know how it leads to sales, which is what I love about it. But the idea of showing up all the time and having to do so much content in order to stand out, and then making sure that content is quality, it's hard, right? It's really hard for business owners to get their arms around that entire process to make it feel right for the business. These systems that we're building, these workflows that we're building, are the closest that I've come. I've tested all of the different tools out there when it comes to the software tools. The whole premise of building these workflows came from having 10 to 15 different software tools that we had to work through different dashboards for different parts of the process. We don't need to do that anymore. The time has come to automate our workflows, to start building smarter business systems, to start building customized systems specific to your business as well. So I'd encourage you to check out Content Automation OS on the Big Moves Marketplace. Remember, use Content 30 at checkout in the coupon code section and you'll get 30% off. That is my way of saying thank you for watching this video, for being here. And I really want to impress you on how effective these AI automations can be when you get started. So again, thanks for being here. Comment below and I'll see you in the next video.